Hey everyone, Tyler here at the Movie Beat, back with another Korean movie review. Happy to be sharing with you my thoughts, mostly happy I guess, on this new movie Space Sweepers, new Korean sci-fi film. Always exciting, but a little bit nervous when a Korean science fiction movie comes out just because of the track record. I've basically been spending all of January revisiting a lot of sci-fi efforts from South Korea. So a few of my past uploads, I'll leave some links in the description box below. I've been actually asking the Korean people that I encounter, mostly some of my students, adults and young people, their thoughts on Korean sci-fi movies, and it has been interesting. The reaction mostly has been like surprise, like are there some, or don't watch. They tell me do not watch Korean sci-fi movies just because they're not good. That's what they say. So I would agree moderately towards more disagree, because I actually found myself liking some Korean sci-fi films, especially movies like Yesterday. I like Natural City. There's also, some kind of famous disaster sci-fi movies. One of my students was like, have you ever seen, they were translating it, Resurrection of the Little, I'm like, Little Match Girl? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, that's sort of kind of a cult movie nowadays. But she was saying like, this is ranked so low in Korea. It's kind of like the butt of some jokes. Anyways, Korean sci-fi tended to just move in another direction or not exist at all. And so even for this film, a lot of people, at least here in Korea, were very nervous for this one coming out. So I was keeping my expectations at a minimum, and I really try to do that for every movie that I see, except, if I can't help it, it's a new Park Chan-wook movie or something, my expectations are gonna be, I can't help it, high. This one, I have to say that I almost feel spoiled having watched all of these so-called failures over the last month here, just because this one was so, I guess, underwhelming, or just it was not the space opera I was hoping for, and I'm saying that with my expectations being very, very low, unfortunately. So let me give you guys a quick rundown of the plot, mostly spoiler-free, and then I'll give you some further thoughts on this new Korean sci-fi film, Space Sweepers, that just came out on Netflix. In a distant future, when Earth is dying, a private corporation named UTS builds a habitable paradise in space for a select number of individuals. While the future of Earth's inhabitants remains uncertain, those capable of moving their lives and work to various space stations orbiting Earth belonging to UTS do so. One such potentially lucrative occupation exists where ragtag teams of space pirates compete amongst themselves to collect valuable space junk and debris that they can sell and recycle for hard cash. Among these space sweepers, a notorious all-Korean crew of 4 ride aboard the fastest and most agile ship dubbed Victory, that tends to scoop up the hottest finds of space garbage before others. But due to a combination of the crew's individual vices and sheer bad luck, they find themselves caught in an endless cycle of debt despite their deep-rooted desires for money. One day, the crew learns that their cargo contains the missing UTS android girl named Dorothy, who was reportedly to be outfitted with a nuclear bomb by the terrorist organization Black Fox. With the crew's last hopes of wiping away their debts having gone bust, they make a drastic decision to set up a trade between the Black Foxes for the payday of a lifetime. But when UTS sniffs out their plan, the crew of Victory get unexpectedly caught between a shadow war for the future of humanity. So I think the biggest thing that holds this movie back is that it just felt so generic. Like, nothing about this movie felt authentic to me. Immediately, this movie, when it started, I was like, okay, this is Elysium, the one with Matt Damon, where they kind of separate the classes. You got the low-class citizens living on Earth, and then this high-class private corporation, rich people paradise up orbiting Earth on this station. They were clearly kind of going for a sort of Guardians of the Galaxy type self-deprecating humor, as a lot of the crew members, larger-than-life personalities, sort of clumsily, clash. There's some infighting amongst the crew. There's some fart jokes and things like that. The movie does feel like it wants to please everyone, but For me, doing that, just sort of pushed it more towards that, like, this could be playing on, TVs at the department store to showcase picture quality type of thing. Nothing that you really want to invest in. By playing it so safe, I don't think it's going to be able to please a specific audience well. So it might kind of tickle your interest, but I don't think anyone out there is going to be like, this was the movie for me. It spoke to me. This is what I wanted. I sort of was reminded of The Phantom Menace a lot when I watched this. I've been trying to kind of pinpoint, like, was it the political aspect? Was it, finding the young person who has all these, like, special potential? Was it the kind of the phoniness of the space opera, or just kind of, I don't know exactly why. I'm going to keep thinking about that. I know there's a couple other sci-fi projects in the works. We might see one or two more this year. But this one was really the first space opera sci-fi film from Korea. I mean, total Star Wars, dogfighting, chasing, and all that. Some of that does look really good, especially in the opening sequences. I liked getting off-world. Besides feeling like they were taking the Elysium concept, I did love the visuals. There are definitely some awkward visual moments, though, especially one towards the end that I could remember when they were exchanging or doing this handoff of the character Goatneem, the young android girl Dorothy in this one. They were handing her from one ship to another, meant like it was accelerating really fast. It just looked... I was wincing uncontrollably, like trying to understand the physics of it, even though you really should not try to think about physics or anything like that in a movie like this. It just did not look good. So besides that, they do have this sort of attempt at a multinational cast a la Okja Snowpiercer type thing, but it really just does not work here for me. You can really kind of feel like each of these characters who are not Korean in it, except maybe the lead played by Richard Armitage, who's like the head of the UTS Corporation. He felt very actually good in this. Probably one of the better non-Korean actors that I've ever seen in a Korean movie, just not including any Bong Joon-ho film. But besides him, everybody else to me felt like they were there for a job or just excited to be part of a movie, and it was lacking that feeling where you can feel that there is a very tight connection between the crew, the director, and all of the actors on the set as being part of an experience. There from the beginning to the end. This one, you don't feel like that. I feel like this one is a string of interconnected parts rather than a cohesive whole picture. So I think that has to do with just the sheer amount of international parts that play a part of this film. The other nationalities in this one also, to me, kind of came across like aliens. Compared to the core Korean crew, they're portrayed as like an alien. They're just so inhuman compared to the Korean crew, even though the Korean crew is also kind of cartoonish a little bit. I think this might have some roots in some webtoon activity. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But this movie did really feel like kind of cartoony with the Korean cast. But when it comes to the international cast, they were just like full-blown aliens. Their skin could have been pink, they could have had horns, they could have had tails. It would have felt the same way. But the fact that they weren't aliens and they were being basically just other humans, I just didn't like the vibe that I got. It felt very the opposite of, I would say, as being an all-inclusive type film. It just felt like they were props. It felt like the international cast was props overall. And I don't know how other people are going to view that or think about even my thoughts on that, but they did not feel like core members of this film, and that's unfortunate just because there are so many of them. I think it might have actually worked better if they were portrayed as full-blown aliens, like a Guardians of the Galaxy type, but because this one, they haven't colonized a lot of other planets and they didn't introduce any concept of aliens, so they just didn't go there. So the cast and crew on this one, written and directed by Jo Sung-hee, who brought us Werewolf Boy, which I actually had some takeaways from that one that I actually kind of liked. I would recommend seeing it. Also starred Song Joong-ki, who was that film was the introduction of this actor to me. He did have a part in the Battleship Island, which I liked, and I wish that part was actually bigger in that film, so I think he really did great in that one. This one, he pilots a lot of the ship. His name's Taeho. So his character is kind of interesting. They make him out to be this kind of soldier fallen from grace, a little bit of a disconnected, adopted father of a girl that he is trying to recover, and I just did not feel so much sympathy for this character, really as much as the movie wants me to have, just because I could not really square some of the choices that he makes, and they just didn't really create his character in a way well enough that I was like rooting for him. So a little bit of a bummer there. Kim Tae-ri, probably the actor that I was looking most forward to seeing in this film. You guys have seen her in The Handmaiden and Mr. Sunshine, the drama series on Netflix. Was just wanted to see how her role would play out in this one, and she looks really cool. I love the aviators, I love the styling. I just didn't really like some of the overaction, some of the mannerisms that this character uses. It just felt a little bit too overplayed for me. So overall, I also kind of felt a little bit disconnected to this character, even though I thought it was pretty cool how she was like the unofficial captain, just because her personality was so strong. She was kind of like this genius from birth, and also a little bit of a fall from grace, but I wish they would have incorporated some of her technical weapon systems, some of her body modifications that she has earlier on to make her stand out a little bit more than she does, because I wanted to see her kind of use some of those skills a little bit earlier. Mr. Park, or the Mr. Tiger is I think what they want to call him in this one. He's got this axe, kind of an ex-Mexican cartel drug member. Also someone that was like kind of a weird arc because of his backstory, and he does kind of become more of the father figure, that he develops those feelings very surprisingly, I think, for himself, his character too, for the young android Dorothy. He kind of wants to keep her a little bit like a pet, or just kind of really likes her on board all of a sudden. Kind of a cute teddy bear type, dangerous father figure, I guess, for the young android. A little bit of a cookie cutter character for me. The android was also pretty cool, I think, with Yoo Hae-jin voicing it. I couldn't really tell if they were going for some kind of a message with transgender type notion with the character is a man, but he kind of like wants to be a woman, like looking with the getting skin grafts and things, or maybe it's just supposed to be a surprise that he's a woman with the deep voice, but it wasn't clear on what it was going for, but it was just a little bit of an odd choice, but I think overall unique. So I have to say that I did like that, although I wasn't very clear on what it was saying. He has like super godly type physical abilities at some times, but then other times, he gets knocked over rather easily. So also a little bit confusing on as to his abilities, but definitely a decent, I would say, android robot for this sci-fi film. Richard Armitage, I think he was the main international cast, who was the strongest and the best, and he's one of the lead credited ones. His name alone doesn't like scream familiarity with me, but looking at his filmography, he has been in quite a bit of stuff. So he actually was really good in this one, I think, just compared to the other international cast. So this movie kind of set these characters up like it wants to do a sequel or many other films, because they don't really give you their backstory until way later in the movie. So all of the cool stuff about these characters you don't know until way later. So I wish that they introduced that earlier and they incorporated more of those specific quirks or their specific skills and traits into their repertoire of like abilities and skills that they could use while delivering the package and getting to know this character. Dorothy was actually a pretty cute part, I think, overall, but it was kind of like Peninsula for me. Just it felt a little bit out of place, when you've got these adults blowing people away and shooting each other in the head. It gets really violent at one point, and then you have this like little kid, this has to go take a poo-poo on the toilet and making fart jokes. So it was a weird tone for me. So I'm curious if you guys received this movie well. I gotta be honest with you, I was really bored for most of this movie, and I had some pretty uncontrollable strong yawns towards the end. So I would have to rate this movie a 4 out of 10. I hoped for more, so much, because I love sci-fi, I love Korean films. So please let me know what you guys think of this film, Space Sweepers, and let me know in the comments below. I hope some people liked it. I hope it does some good. I hope it brings some awareness to Korean film, but I don't think it's a great representation of Korean film. It didn't feel like a Korean movie to me at all, really, just besides having a few really famous Korean actors in it. So yeah, Space Sweepers, not a great way to start out the year for Korean cinema, but I think we have a long way to go, and there's some interesting films on the horizon. So I look forward to checking those out and sharing my thoughts with you on those moving forward through this year. So thanks for tuning in for this one. Until next time, I'm Tyler here at The Movie Beat. Keep watching movies.